The crowd gathered outside the iron gate. The night was cold, but the air was filled with restless energy. Torches burned along the walls, lighting the rocky ground of the arena. The alien council members sat on their high stone seats, watching everything from above. They wore long black robes with golden marks. Their eyes shined with excitement. This night was not a normal night. This night, they were throwing a human into the beast's den. Mira stood at the center of the lower platform. Her hands were tied with steel cuffs. Her boots were covered in dust from the long walk. Her short dark hair fell to her shoulders, and her face had no fear. She stared at the iron gate in front of her. Behind that gate was the den. Everyone believed no one came out alive from there. The beast had killed every creature thrown inside. It was their way of punishing enemies. It was also their entertainment. The guards surrounding Myra were tall and had gray skin. They pushed her forward with their long spears, but Mira did not stumble. She kept her balance and walked with calm steps. The crowd began to shout louder. Some shouted insults. Some laughed. Some made bets on how fast the beast would finish her. She ignored every voice. The leader of the council, a tall alien with silver horns, raised his hand. The noise stopped at once. His deep voice echoed through the cold air. "Tonight, we see what happens when a weak human faces the beast," he said. "This is the end for her. This is what happens to those who stand against us." The crowd cheered again. Mira lifted her head and looked at the leader without fear. Her dark eyes were steady. For a second, the leader frowned. There was something strange about this human. She did not shake. She did not cry. She was not begging for her life. The guards unlocked the chain from the stone floor and dragged her toward the gate. The iron door was twice as tall as any of them. It was marked with claw scratches. Some marks were fresh. The smell of blood came from inside the darkness. The sound of distant growling echoed through the cold tunnel. Many in the crowd felt a chill down their spines. Mira stopped right before the gate. The guard behind her pushed her forward. She turned her head slightly. Her voice was low but clear. "You can stop pushing. I can walk on my own." The guard stared at her in surprise. No one had ever spoken calmly before entering the den. Most prisoners begged or screamed at this point. Mira simply took a deep breath and walked forward. The gate opened slowly. The old metal groaned with a sharp sound. Inside was darkness. There was only a small amount of light from a torch on the wall, but it disappeared after a few steps. The air was heavy and smelled like earth, blood, and old bones. The guards threw away the chain and stepped back. The gate closed behind her with a loud thud. The crowd outside leaned forward, waiting to hear the usual scream that followed. But the scream did not come. There was only silence. Mira let her eyes adjust to the dark. Her boots made a soft sound against the rocky floor as she moved. She lifted her hands and pulled against the steel cuffs, testing their strength. They were strong, but she had expected that. She had already memorized the shape of the rock walls. She looked around carefully. Her breathing was steady. She had learned long ago that fear only made enemies stronger. She remembered the long days on Earth during the war. She remembered running through the burning cities and fighting creatures far worse than this. She was not here to beg for life. She was here to survive. From the far side of the den came a low growl. It was not loud at first, but it was deep. The sound made the dust fall from the roof. The beast was awake. The crowd outside began to shout again as they heard the rumble. Some laughed. Some pounded on the railing. Mira took one step forward. The ground was uneven. She could feel bones beneath the dirt. They cracked softly under her boots. She did not look down. She kept her eyes on the dark corner where the sound had come from. The growl came again, louder this time. The beast was moving. The sound of claws scraping against stone echoed through the den. The creature had smelled her. It knew there was fresh prey inside. She lowered her body slightly, preparing herself. Her wrists twisted against the cuffs. She moved her fingers slowly, making sure blood kept flowing through her hands. She had a habit of staying calm before every fight. That habit had saved her more than once. The aliens outside could not see clearly inside the den yet, but they were watching through the old viewing screens. The image was blurry, but it showed the shape of a human standing firm in the middle of darkness. One alien leaned toward another. "She is not running," he whispered. "She will," the other replied. They all run when they see it, but Mira had no plan to run. She listened to every sound carefully. She could hear the beast breathing. It was big, heavy. Each step it took made the ground shake. She could smell its breath from here, warm and foul. The sound of a chain dragging behind it filled the air. She moved slowly to the side and picked up a small, sharp rock from the floor. It fit perfectly in her palm. It was not a real weapon, but it was enough for her to use when the time came. She slipped it under the metal edge of her cuff. It was not enough to break it now, but it was a start. She was patient. The alien council leader leaned forward on his seat, his eyes narrowing. He was waiting for the moment the beast would strike. He had seen many prisoners die here. None had lasted more than a few heartbeats. But something about the human made him uneasy. Her movements were not wild. They were controlled. The growl turned into a deep roar. The sound bounced off the walls like thunder. The crowd screamed with excitement. They could see a shadow forming in the black fog at the far end of the den. Two red eyes glowed like burning coals. The shape of the beast slowly came into view. It was huge, its back almost touching the ceiling. Its long claws scraped against the floor. Saliva dripped from its sharp teeth. Mira kept her eyes on it. Her breathing did not change. She stood tall, her feet firm on the ground. She had faced death before. She knew that fear was a weapon, and she would not give it to the beast. The creature stepped closer. Its steps were slow but heavy. It wanted to play with its prey before the kill. The sound of its breathing filled the entire den. The chains around its front leg rattled with every step. The humans on Earth had always been underestimated. Mira knew that well. The aliens thought of humans as weak, soft, and easy to break. She had seen the look in their eyes since the day they captured her, but they never understood what humans did when pushed to the edge. She lowered herself into a fighting stance. Her body was light. Her hands were ready. She felt the sharp rock pressing against the cuff. It was still in place. Her eyes never left the beast. She spoke in a calm voice. "I am not your prey." The roar answered her like a storm. The beast lowered its head, ready to charge. The crowd outside roared as well. They thought the end was near. But inside the den, Mira's lips curved into a small, steady smile. The night was cold. The air was heavy. The gate was locked. Everyone outside waited for the sound of defeat. But inside, one human stood alone, unbroken, facing the darkness without fear, and that was the moment the balance began to change. The den was now filled with the sound of the beast's breathing. Each breath was deep and rough like the sound of wind moving through a cave. Its red eyes glowed brighter as it stepped closer to Mira. The air became hotter. Dust moved under its feet as it dragged its heavy body forward. Mira stood still. Her legs were slightly bent. Her hands were ready. Her heart was beating, but it was steady. The beast let out a low growl, a sound that made even the strongest warriors panic. The aliens outside pressed closer to the viewing screens, trying to see everything clearly. They could hear the beast. They could feel the ground shake with its steps. The creature came fully into the light of the single torch on the wall. It was massive. Its head was shaped like a hammer with rows of sharp teeth. Thick scales covered its body. Its front claws were long like blades. Chains wrapped around one of its front legs, but the chain was old and broken in many places. It had killed so many prisoners that the council never bothered to fix the chains completely. They only gave the beast enough space to move, hunt, and kill. Mira looked up at the creature without blinking. She noticed every detail. Its left leg was slightly heavier than the right. The way it moved showed that the beast had an old injury there. Its eyes were sharp, but its breathing showed it tired quickly after running. She understood these things fast. Observation had kept her alive during the war on Earth. The beast tilted its head. It was used to seeing fear. It was used to the smell of terror. It was not used to calm. Mira did not smell like prey. The beast gave a long snarl. It lowered its head to the ground and circled around her. Mira turned with it slowly, keeping the distance equal on all sides. Her boots touched bone fragments that cracked under her weight. She could see skulls scattered near the wall. This place had taken many lives, but tonight it would not take hers. The aliens on the council platform whispered to each other. One of them said in a sharp voice, "Why is she not screaming?" Another replied, "She will when the beast strikes." The leader of the council did not speak. He leaned forward on his seat and stared at the screen. He had seen hundreds thrown into the den. None had ever stood still this long. The beast stopped circling and let out another roar. This time it sounded like thunder. Mira tightened her grip on the sharp rock hidden in her cuff. Her muscles were ready. She slowly shifted her foot backward, finding firm ground under her. The creature lowered its front body and pushed its claws into the dirt. It charged with full force. The air rushed forward as the ground shook under its weight. Mira jumped to the side at the last moment. Dust flew up from the ground. The beast crashed into the wall behind her, breaking pieces of rock with its horned head. A sharp crack echoed through the den. Mira rolled on the ground, came back to her feet, and faced the beast again. The crowd outside shouted in excitement. No one had ever dodged the beast before. The guards looked at each other with wide eyes. They had not expected this. The beast shook its head and turned to face her again. Its roar filled the air, but Mira did not step back. She held the sharp rock against the steel cuff and started pressing it harder. The edge of the metal slowly began to weaken. She needed time. She needed more space to move. The creature moved again, slower this time. It was testing her. Mira stepped backward and turned slightly to the side. She was watching its shoulders and legs. She knew it would give her a signal before every attack. All animals had a rhythm. Even alien beasts had a rhythm. Outside, the aliens continued to whisper. One of them said, "She moves like a fighter." Another replied, "She will still die. No one can win against the beast." The council leader did not speak. He just kept watching. His sharp eyes narrowed as Mira moved like she was trained for this. She was not just a human thrown into a cage. She was something else. The beast lowered its head again. This time, it swung its claw at her. The sound of its movement was sharp. Mira ducked low and felt the wind pass over her head. The claw missed her by less than a hand's length. She used that moment to slide the sharp rock against the cuff again. A small crack formed in the metal. She smiled slightly. The beast spun around with surprising speed. Mira moved backward fast. She knew she could not fight it yet. She had to wait for the right moment. She had to break the cuffs first. The torchlight flickered as the beast stepped closer again. Its breath was hot and heavy. Mira could feel it on her face. She took another step backward and hit the cold stone wall behind her. The creature thought she was trapped now. It roared again, louder than before. The sound reached the crowd outside. Some shouted for the beast to attack. Others cheered for the human to fall. They loved the fear, but they did not see the calm in Mira's eyes. They did not see her moving her wrists slowly. Pushing the sharp edge into the crack again and again, the beast raised its front claw. It came down with great force. The ground broke where Mira had been standing a second ago. She rolled to the side, feeling the wind of the strike. The claw smashed into the stone wall, leaving a deep hole. Pieces of rock flew in every direction. Mira jumped to her feet and pulled the cuff hard. The crack grew wider. A thin line of blood appeared on her wrist, but she did not care. She had broken worse chains before. The beast turned again and charged forward. Mira ran to the side. The creature chased her with loud steps. It was fast, but not smart. She led it toward the corner where the ground was uneven. She remembered how it moved earlier. She was counting its steps. The council leader leaned forward more. His hands were tight on the armrest of his seat. He was not shouting anymore. He was watching carefully. Mira jumped to the side at the last second. The beast hit the broken ground and stumbled. Its front leg hit the sharp rocks, and it let out a deep, angry growl. Its movement slowed for just 1 second. Mira did not waste it. She slammed the sharp rock into the crack on the cuff with all her strength. The metal snapped. The broken piece of the cuff fell to the ground with a loud sound. Her right hand was free. She quickly switched the sharp rock to her other hand and started working on the second cuff. The beast turned back toward her with rage. Its eyes glowed brighter. It roared again. The sound was so strong that dust fell from the roof. The crowd screamed with excitement. They thought she was about to be crushed. Myra stepped backward, her breathing still steady. She looked at the creature carefully. She was not afraid of its roar. She had heard worse. The beast charged again. This time, its steps were less steady. The ground near the corner made it slip slightly. Mira used that moment to roll forward under its body. She slid across the dirt, feeling the heat from its belly. She came out behind it and slammed the rock into the second cuff. The second cuff cracked but did not break yet. She pulled hard. The metal cut her skin, but she did not stop. She twisted her wrist again and again until the metal finally gave way. Both her hands were free now. The aliens outside gasped when they saw the cuffs fall. No prisoner had ever broken free inside the den. The guards looked at each other in disbelief. The council leader rose slowly from his seat. His eyes narrowed even more. "Interesting," he said softly. The beast turned around quickly, but Mira was ready now. Her movements were faster without the cuffs. She bent her knees and took a deep breath. She lifted the sharp rock and held it tight. It was not a sword, but in her hand it was enough. The creature gave another roar and began to circle her again. The air in the den became heavy. The torchlight flickered wildly. Bones cracked under their feet. This was no longer just a hunt. This was a fight between two predators. The crowd outside went silent for a moment. For the first time, they saw a human standing free inside the beast's den. Mira stared at the glowing red eyes without stepping back. Her boots were covered in dust. Her hair stuck to her forehead with sweat. But her spirit was strong. She whispered to herself, "Now it begins." The beast lowered its head and prepared to strike again. Mira lowered her body as well, ready to meet it head-on. The chains were gone. The fear was gone. The aliens outside leaned forward as one. The council leader stood straight. The guards held their breath. Inside the den, only the sound of the beast and the calm heartbeat of one human filled the air. The storm was about to break. The air inside the den grew hotter as the beast circled around Mira again. The ground under its feet cracked with every heavy step. Its red eyes never left her face. It growled low, and the sound spread through the stone walls like thunder rolling over mountains. The torch on the wall flickered in the rising heat. Mira bent her knees slightly. Her shoulders were relaxed. She held the sharp rock tightly in her right hand. Her wrists were free now, and every movement felt lighter and faster. She breathed in slowly, keeping her focus on the beast's shoulders and legs. She knew it was about to strike. She was ready. Outside the iron gate, the alien crowd had grown louder. Their eyes were locked on the viewing screens. They had never seen a human last this long inside the den. Some shouted for the beast to finish her. Some placed new bets. A few stood silent, unsure of what they were witnessing. The council leader stood straight on the high platform. His long robe moved with the cold night wind. He watched every movement with sharp eyes. He had seen the beast kill strong fighters. He had seen it crush entire groups. But never had he seen a single human stand this way. The beast lowered its head and let out a roar that made the walls tremble. Its claws dug into the ground. Its tail struck the wall behind it. Dust fell from the ceiling. It charged forward with full force. The ground shook. The sound of its steps echoed through the den. Mira did not run. She moved to the left at the last second, her boots sliding against the dirt. The beast's claws cut the air where she had been standing a heartbeat before. It crashed into the corner of the wall, sending stone flying in every direction. She rolled forward and came to her feet again. Her eyes stayed locked on the creature. Her breathing was steady, not broken. She had moved through battlefields before. This was just another battlefield. The beast turned its head with an angry growl. It did not understand why the prey was not falling like the others. It had broken bones, torn flesh, crushed everything before. But this human was still standing. The crowd outside screamed louder. The sound filled the air, but Mira blocked it out. She had no space in her mind for their noise. She only saw the beast in front of her. The creature moved again. It swung its long tail toward her. She ducked low and felt the wind above her back. The tail smashed into the wall and broke more stone. She turned quickly and struck the sharp rock at the lower part of its front leg. The rock cut between the scales. It was not a deep wound, but it was enough to make the creature roar in pain. For the first time, the crowd went silent for a moment. The beast had been wounded. It had never happened before inside the den. The council leader narrowed his eyes. His hands tightened on the armrest of his stone seat. The beast stepped back, confused and angry. Its red eyes glowed even brighter. It roared again, shaking the den. Mira stood straight again. Her hand was stained with dark blood. Her boots pressed hard against the floor. She knew this was the beginning of the real fight. The creature rushed forward again. It swung its claws fast. She jumped to the side, but the sharp tips scraped her arm. The pain was strong, but she ignored it. She pushed forward and struck the beast again, this time on its shoulder where the scales were thinner. The sharp rock slid in with a soft cracking sound. The beast screamed and slammed its head downward. Mira rolled away before it could crush her. Dust and pieces of bone flew into the air. She came up on one knee, breathing fast but steady. Her eyes stayed sharp. The aliens outside started to shout again. Some of them were excited now, not just for the beast, but for the human. They had never seen anything like this. The guards exchanged worried looks. The council leader leaned closer to the screen. His voice was low and steady. "She fights like she was born in the dark," he said. The beast turned back toward Mira. Its movements were slower now. Its breathing was heavy. Its injured leg shook slightly. Mira saw it clearly. She had found its weak point. She took a deep breath and stepped forward. She circled the creature the same way it had circled her. She kept her body low and light. The beast followed her with angry eyes, but its steps were uneven. Its injured leg dragged slightly behind. She moved closer to the wall, where the ground was broken and uneven. She wanted the beast to follow. She needed it to lose balance again. The creature roared, lifting its head high. Then it lowered it and charged. The ground trembled. Its claws ripped through the dirt as it came closer. Myra jumped to the side again and ran toward the broken ground. The beast followed, its weight smashing rocks beneath it. She turned fast and struck its injured leg again with all her strength. The sharp rock slid deep this time. The beast stumbled. Its front legs hit the broken stones. Its massive body fell sideways, crashing against the wall. The sound echoed through the entire den. Dust rose like a cloud. The crowd outside screamed louder than ever. Some shouted in shock. Others cheered without knowing why. The guards stepped back from the railing, unsure what they were watching. The council leader did not move. His sharp eyes stayed fixed on the screen. His lips pressed together tightly. Inside the den, Myra did not waste a single breath. She ran toward the fallen creature and climbed onto its back. Its scales were hot and rough, but she held on tightly. The beast roared and twisted its body, trying to throw her off. Its massive tail swung wildly, smashing into the walls. She crawled forward toward its neck. She could feel its heartbeat under her hands. She raised the sharp rock high. The creature shook again, but she did not let go. She slammed the rock down on the thinner spot behind its neck. The beast roared louder than ever before. The sound was like a storm breaking through mountains. The ground shook with the force of its scream. The crowd outside could not look away. No one had ever climbed onto the beast. No one had ever struck it like this. The creature rolled onto its side, trying to crush her. She jumped off its back and rolled onto the ground. Stones cut her skin, but she stood up again without a sound. The beast rose slowly. Blood dripped from its neck and leg. Its breathing was heavy. It growled again, but its power was weaker now. Mira walked toward it with steady steps. She was no longer the prey. She was the hunter. The council leader slowly sat back down. His eyes did not blink. He had seen something he did not think possible. Humans standing face to face with the beast and not breaking. Mira raised her arm and pointed the sharp rock at the creature. She did not speak loudly. Her voice was calm. "You fall tonight," she said. The creature answered with another roar, but this time it was not the roar of a hunter. It was the roar of something fighting for survival. The din was filled with the sound of their breaths. The crowd was silent for the first time since the gate had closed. Even the guards stood without moving. The torch burned low on the wall, its light shaking in the dusty air. The beast lowered its head and stepped forward again, slower than before. Mira moved as well. She walked toward it, ready for the final clash. She was not just fighting for her life. She was fighting to show them something they had never seen. She was fighting to win. The storm inside. The den was no longer controlled by the beast. It was controlled by one human with blood on her hands and fire in her eyes. The turning point had come. The ground trembled as the beast moved forward again. Its front leg bled where Mira had struck it. Its breathing was rough and heavy. Each sound it made was filled with pain and rage. Its red eyes burned like fire, but its strength was fading. The air inside the den had grown thick with dust and heat. The torchlight flickered weakly against the stone walls. Mira stood firm in front of the creature. Her hair stuck to her forehead with sweat and her arm carried cuts, but her eyes were sharp and alive. She gripped the sharp rock tighter. Her boots pressed against the ground, ready to move at any second. She was tired but unbroken. The beast gave a deep growl that shook the floor. It lowered its head and prepared to strike again. It wanted to crush the human who had dared to hurt it. It wanted to end this. The alien crowd outside grew silent as they watched the screen. Many had forgotten to cheer. What they were seeing was something they had never imagined. The council leader leaned forward, his silver horns glinting in the firelight. His hands gripped the edge of the stone platform. His eyes followed every movement inside the den. He had seen prisoners scream. He had seen creatures fall. But he had never seen this. A human facing the beast without fear, standing like a storm. The beast charged. Its claws tore the dirt as it rushed toward Mira. The sound filled the den like thunder. Mira did not step back. She moved forward at the last second, turning to the side and sliding beneath its massive body. Her boots kicked up dust. She came up behind it and struck again at the injured leg. The beast roared in pain. Its body stumbled to one side, smashed against the wall, breaking more stone. Mira turned quickly and ran toward the side where the ground was more open. Her breathing was fast now, but her mind was clear. The creature turned its head slowly. Its movements had lost the speed they had at the start. It was strong but not endless. Its blood stained the ground. Mira saw its weakness. She had studied every move. She knew where to strike next. Outside, the alien crowd began to whisper among themselves. Some could not believe what they were seeing. Others began to fear it. The guards shifted nervously, unsure if they should step closer to the gate or stay where they were. The council leader lifted his hand to silence everyone. His eyes stayed locked on the screen. Inside the den, Mira walked slowly toward the beast. She no longer looked like prey. She looked like someone who had already decided the end of this fight. The creature roared again, trying to frighten her. But its roar was not the same anymore. It was weaker, shook less. Mira moved around it like a hunter circling its prey. She kept her steps light. The sharp rock in her hand caught the torchlight. She stopped near its neck where she had struck earlier. She knew this was the point that could bring it down for good. The beast swung its tail suddenly. The heavy tail cut through the air and smashed into the wall. Mira jumped back just in time. A spray of dust filled the air. Her shoulder brushed against a jagged rock, leaving a line of blood. But she did not stop. She lowered her body and ran forward again. The creature raised its head, but she was already too close. She climbed onto its injured front leg and pulled herself onto its back. Its rough scales cut into her hands, but she kept climbing. The beast roared and twisted its body to shake her off. It slammed its side into the wall, trying to crush her. She held onto one of the broken chains wrapped around its leg and swung herself higher. The alien crowd gasped as they saw her climb. No one had ever dared to do this. Even the guards took a step back, their hands tight on their weapons. The council leader watched closely, his eyes narrowed. The beast spun in circles, crashing against walls, kicking up dust and shaking the floor. Its roars were wild, but Myra held on tight. She crawled toward its neck. The warm blood from its wounds touched her boots and hands. She kept moving, slow but steady. When she reached the top of its neck, she raised the sharp rock. The creature tried to throw her off again, but she stayed balanced. She pressed her knees against its back and pulled the rock high. The council leader stood up from his seat. The crowd fell silent again. The only sound in the entire place was the beast's roaring and the echo of Mira's heartbeat in her ears. She struck the rock down into the same weak point she had hit before. The beast screamed so loud that the torches outside flickered. Its legs shook, its claws tore at the ground. The floor cracked under its weight. Myra pulled the rock out and struck again, stronger this time. The red glow in the beast's eyes flickered. Its roar grew weak. Its front legs bent slowly. It fell forward with a heavy sound. Dust and stones rose in a large wave. The ground trembled like an earthquake. Mira jumped off its back and landed on the ground. She stumbled, but stood straight. Her body ached, but her eyes were sharp. She walked toward the creature carefully, keeping the sharp rock in her hand. The beast tried to lift its head, but it could not. Its breath was shallow. Its eyes stared at her with the last bit of its strength. Mira stopped in front of it. She looked at the creature that had killed so many before her. She felt no fear, only calm. She raised the sharp rock one last time and struck its neck. The sound echoed through the den like a hammer on steel. The creature's head fell to the ground. Its red eyes dimmed. Its claws stopped moving. The alien crowd outside exploded in noise. Some screamed in shock. Some covered their mouths. Some could not believe what they had just seen. The guards near the gate took a step back. The council leader stayed silent. His sharp eyes watched Mira standing next to the fallen beast. He had never imagined such a moment. Mira dropped the sharp rock to the ground. It hit the dirt with a soft sound. Her boots were stained with dark blood. Her clothes were torn in some places, but she stood straight. She took a slow, deep breath. She turned toward the gate and walked with calm steps. Each step left a mark of blood behind her. The sound of her boots echoed through the silent din. The guards outside were frozen. They had never opened the gate for someone who survived. No one had ever walked out of the beast's den alive. The council leader slowly raised his hand. The guards hesitated, then moved toward the gate and unlocked the heavy iron bars. The gate opened slowly, with a loud creak. Mira stepped through the opening. She did not speak. She did not raise her arms in victory. She just walked forward, her boots still wet with the beast's blood. The alien crowd parted as she passed. No one shouted now. No one laughed. All they did was watch in silence. The council leader watched her from his seat. His eyes followed every step she took. He saw the look in her eyes. It was not rage. It was not fear. It was quiet strength. Mira stopped in the middle of the platform. She lifted her head toward the council. She did not bow. She did not kneel. She just stood there. The light from the torches reflected on her face, making her eyes shine like steel. One of the council members whispered to the leader, "What have we created?" The leader did not answer. He simply watched as Mira walked away from the gate and stood in the open air, the cold night wind blowing against her blood-stained boots. The guards did not try to touch her. No one moved. It was as if the entire place had fallen under her shadow. For the first time in many years, the beast was dead. For the first time, a human had walked out alive. Mira had claimed victory. The cold night wrapped the arena like a silent wave. The crowd that had once shouted and cheered stood frozen. The fire from the torches burned slowly. The smell of dust and blood filled the air. Mira stood in the center of the platform, her boots still red, her breathing steady. No one dared to step forward. No one dared to speak. The beast that had ruled the den for years lay silent behind her. Its massive body no longer moved. It had fallen to a single human. No one had thought this was possible. They had thrown many into that den. None had ever walked out. But now, a human had changed everything. The council leader stood tall on his high seat. His eyes stayed fixed on Myra. His face carried no smile. His fingers tightened around the cold edge of the stone seat. His people had spent years controlling every creature, every being, every rule in this world. But now in front of them stood someone who had broken their fear without a single command. The guards at the gate stayed still. Their hands shook slightly, though they tried to hide it. The alien crowd whispered to each other in low voices. Their fear was new. It was not the fear of the beast anymore. It was the fear of something they did not understand. Mira turned slowly to face the council. Her eyes were steady. Her hands hung loose by her side. She did not raise her voice. She did not need to. Her presence alone was enough. She had faced their strongest weapon and walked out alive. That was her message. The council leader rose from his seat. His cloak moved like a dark wave around him. He walked slowly toward the edge of the platform. The steps of his boots echoed through the silent arena. His eyes were sharp, but inside them was a quiet storm. He had seen fighters. He had seen monsters. But this human was something different. He raised his hand. The guards stepped forward slowly, unsure of what they were about to do. Mira did not move. Her calm made them even more nervous. One of the guards reached for the chain at his side, but the leader stopped him with a small gesture. The leader spoke with a deep voice. His words were heavy. You killed the beast. No one has ever done this before. Mira said nothing. She simply lifted her chin slightly. She did not need to speak to prove her strength. The leader took another step forward. You are a human. You were meant to fall, but you did not. You stood? You won. The crowd whispered louder now. Some voices were filled with confusion. Others carried fear. A few even held a strange kind of respect. The leader looked down at the beast's body and then back at Mira. You are not like the others. You are dangerous. Myra's lips curved into a small smile. It was not a smile of joy. It was the smile of someone who knew exactly what they had done. It was quiet and cold. The leader's fingers curled tightly. He knew this smile was a warning. The balance of their world had shifted. They believed themselves the highest power. But now, standing below them, was a human who had proved them wrong. The guards exchanged nervous looks. They had trained to control prisoners, but none of their training prepared them for this moment. One guard whispered to another. The other shook his head. The crowd began to chant softly. At first it was confused and scattered. Then it grew louder. It was not a chant of praise. It was a chant of fear and disbelief. Mira stood still, letting their words flow around her like wind. The leader raised his hand again. The noise stopped at once. His voice filled the arena. Take her. The guards hesitated. No one wanted to be the first to step closer. The beast had fallen to her. What chance did they have if she chose to fight again? Mira did not step back. She let them move closer. Her eyes stayed locked on the leader. Every step the guards took was heavy. Their breathing grew shallow. When they reached her, they placed light chains on her wrists. The chains were made for ordinary prisoners. They were not made for someone like her. She could have broken them if she wanted. She did not. She let them do it. The leader watched carefully. He was trying to understand her. She did not resist. She did not speak. She stood like someone who already knew the end of this game. The guards led her down the long stone path behind the platform. The crowd split to make way. No one dared to touch her. Some looked at her with fear. Some looked with silent awe. They took her to the tower behind the arena. It was a tall structure of black stone. It was used to keep prisoners who survived the first trials, but no human had ever reached it. The guards locked the heavy door behind her. Mira stood in a small cell with a single light from above. The walls were cold and hard. The floor smelled like old iron. She sat down on the floor, leaning her back against the wall. Her eyes looked straight ahead. Outside the tower, the council gathered in the main hall. The leader sat at the head of the long table. His closest advisors stood around him. They spoke in low voices, but the tension was thick. One advisor said, "We cannot keep her. She will rise again." Others said, "If we let her go, others will follow. They will see her as a symbol. They will stop fearing us." Third added, "If we kill her, we prove that we are still in control. But if we fail, everything ends." The leader stayed silent for a long time. He remembered the look in her eyes when she stood before him. It was not the look of a prisoner. It was the look of someone who had already won. He finally spoke. "She is not just a human. She is something more. If we strike her down, we make her a legend. If we let her live, she becomes a storm." The advisors shifted nervously. None of them had ever seen their leader hesitate like this. Inside the tower, Mira sat quietly. She had no chains strong enough to hold her if she wished to break them. She had no fear of their walls. She closed her eyes and breathed deeply. She remembered the beast's roar, the taste of the dusty air, the sound of her heartbeat in the silence. She opened her eyes and smiled again. She knew the fight was not over. It had just changed shape. That night, whispers spread through the alien city. The story of the human who killed the beast reached every corner. Workers spoke in the tunnels. Traders whispered in the markets. Children repeated her name with wide eyes. Fear was growing, but so was something else. A new idea. The idea that humans were not weak. That they could fight back. That they could win. The leader walked alone to the balcony of the council hall. The night wind carried the sound of the crowd below. He looked down at the arena where the beast had once ruled. It was now silent and empty. He knew something had started that could not be stopped. Inside the tower, Myra looked up at the small window above her. A cold wind touched her face. She whispered a single word to herself. It was not a cry. It was a promise. She rose to her feet and placed her hands against the wall. Her smile returned. It was the same smile she had when she walked out of the beast's den. It carried quiet strength. It carried warning. The guards below did not know that their chains were nothing. The leader did not know that his walls would not last forever. The city did not know that fear could change sides. The night deepened. The torches burned low. The beast's blood dried on the ground. A new story had begun. A story not about monsters, but about a human who turned fear into power. And far above the silent city, the stars watched as Mira prepared to rise again.